this can unlock the San Antonio Spurs as they close out the regular season. Now, the Spurs got a big win over the Brooklyn Nets, led by a career night by no other than Devin Vassell. He dropped 37 points on 70% shooting, making history for the San Antonio Spurs. We will get into Dev's career night and what that means for the back end of this Spurs season and for the rest of these guys gutting it out playing for the San Antonio Spurs. What's good, Spurs Digest family? I am Brian Colbert here to talk some Spurs hoops with y'all. This isn't really a post-game show. This is more of a vibe check, a pulse check to see where you guys are at because we are going in to a nice stretch of games and we have some nice momentum. We're going to talk about all that, but first make sure you hit that subscribe button. We appreciate y'all for always supporting, and if you haven't yet, hit that doorbell so you can be notified every time we drop a video. We are bringing you content after content. We love our Spurs Digest family, and honestly, that's what this is about, right? We have a few days until the Spurs next game. And I want to see how y'all feeling right now because there's been a lot of ups and downs in the comments. There's been a lot of ups and downs on the blogs, on social media. We've seen it all, and I want to know how y'all are really feeling. And honestly, I'm also here to let you guys know that there is a lot to be excited about when it comes to the San Antonio Spurs team and why this may be the most important stretch of the season for the San Antonio Spurs. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, we got to give my boy Dev love his flowers. What a game he had. And like I said earlier, it was a record-breaking game for the San Antonio Spurs. A career night, 37 points, which is a career high for Devin Vassell. 70% from the field. That is phenomenal. That is so tough, especially with a guy like Wemby's not on the court, right? Like, those are tough shots to get, and he hit them, almost all of them. 11 rebounds, 8 3-points made, which was also a career high, and 5 assists. Not just a beautiful scoring game, but an all-around game for Devin Vassell. And this game made him the only player in Spurs history. And this is kind of crazy when you think about all of the legends that have played for the Spurs. He becomes the only player in Spurs history to record 35 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 3-points made in a game. Hand claps indeed for the young fella. Devin Vassell looked great, and it was honestly great to see him have a game like that after going through the season he's had. Again, injuries, again, getting off to kind of a slow start, not really knowing what his role is. Is he a starter? Is he coming off the bench? A lot of different things have happened in this season for Devin Vassell. So to see him come through with a game like this, it just was impressive. And to me, it called to what we really should be talking about when we talk about these Spurs, what really we should be feeling when we talk about these Spurs and where they're at right now. Because I feel like as soon as Wemby went down, and rightfully so, it's time to tank, right? Everybody's saying it's time to tank. Go get, this is such a deep draft. Go get a great pick. Do all those things because Wemby's not there. We're not going to the playoffs anyway. And maybe that is true. The playoffs may be out of reach, but to me, it told me something else because, again, even with Wemby this season, how far were the Spurs really going to go? This season was about seeing what these other guys, these other pieces are able to do and accomplish because that is how you really build that championship roster. You build that championship roster by being able to put pieces around your stars. You have Fox now. You have Wemby. Who are those other guys that are part of that core? Vassell looks to be that part. Vassell looks to be, honestly, one of those players that can fit with any team as like a third option, a second option sometimes, because he does the hard things, man. He shoots and he plays defense. He's a role player with star potential. Like, I don't know if that really makes sense, but he is a role player with star potential because this guy can light it up. We've seen big nights from him before, and he's not scared of it. He wants it. He wants to go out there and do these things. So you look at a guy like Vassell, and he has a night like this, and you say, okay, is this a piece that we can build around along with Wemby and Fox? Is this a guy that we are going to keep? Is this a guy that's part of our future? Because, again, all of these young guys are extremely young. And that same thing goes for Castle, goes for Sochan, who struggled last game, but I think honestly is just such a big piece of the Spurs team. And honestly, one of those guys like almost like a Meta World piece where it's like, man, you don't want to play against them, but you love to play with them. Like I feel like that's Sochan, and I feel like he's really an energy guy. Keldon, somebody like Keldon that can come off the bench and fill it up so consistently. These are all pieces you're looking at, and not just looking at to say, okay, or we're going to keep all of these guys. You're also looking at, okay, how much value do these guys have? How much value can we get out of these guys? And the only way you guys get value, ladies and gentlemen, is if they play well, is if they play winning basketball. Losing games is not going to increase the value of these pieces. Because again, now that you have Fox, you're just a piece or two away from really competing in every single season when you're in the West because you have Wemby. Because Wemby is a unicorn. Wemby is the best defensive player in the NBA. You have a De'Aaron Fox who's going to help him improve tremendously. Now you say, what are these pieces? So I looked at a Devin Vassell game like that, and I said, yes, these are the games I want to see during this stretch. And honestly, this is going to be a nice stretch for our San Antonio Spurs. When you look at this schedule right here and what they have left of this season, they do have the Sacramento Kings, a winnable game. The Minnesota Timberwolves, they're a tough team. That's going to be a tough game. But then you have Dallas back-to-back, and then you have Charlotte, and then you have New Orleans. You can go on a nice little run here. Yes, you're 6 games out of 10th, which would have you in the play-in, but that's not really what I'm looking towards right here. I just want to see winning basketball for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. Again, you want to see which of these guys is a part of the future because it's all about the future right now. Even when they traded for De'Aaron Fox, that's not a win now move. That's a secure the future move. So when you're securing the future, you have to know what that future looks like. And I think that's where these guys come into play, where Devin Vassell comes into play, where Jeremy Sochan comes into play, where these guys where you really want to know what they're made of. And to me, Devin Vassell, he's a dog. He's a killer, and he embodies that culture of what the San Antonio Spurs is. He is that classic Spurs guy because he's a hooper. He's not going to say too much. He's not going to do too much, but he is going to get buckets, and I love to see him bounce back like that. And again, I really think that a lot of these guys have the potential to make an impact on the Spurs team or be a very, very valuable trade asset. There's not a lot of Keldon Johnsons coming off the bench and being able to do that, right? Like there's guys that have Keldon Johnson's ability that cannot come off the bench as effectively. Like coming off of the bench and being effective is so valuable in today's NBA. It just adds a whole nother element to your game. And we've seen it a lot of times with Keldon, the way he's been able to add that spark off the bench, but also be able to close out lineups sometimes, be able to mix in wherever. Like Keldon is a valuable piece, but again, you have to see him playing basketball. You have to see him finding ways to contribute to these games. So I get it, guys. I get it. I want to tank. I get it. We have these 2 picks. I get it. The future is bright, but remember, in order to secure the future, you have to know who you have next to Wemby and Fox because it's important. Because to me, I'm looking at this roster up and down, and I can see guys that we know are going to stick around. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Castle yet. And the way he's been able to play, and again, much like Keldon, a guy off the bench. We know it's only a matter of time before Castle is a starter, before Castle is one of those franchise cornerstones. He's shown it. He a dog as well. He's not scared to play like that. But again, I don't even know if we really get to see what these guys are made of at this level while Wemby is on the court. So you know how earlier I said this is the most important stretch? This is the most important stretch. We know what we're getting out of Wemby. We know Wemby is a part of this future. We know what we're getting out of Fox. Even though it's been a little rusty, it's been a little slow, we know what we're going to get out of Fox, especially with the offseason. But now we get to see Castle play more. We get to see him play a bigger role for this team. We're getting to see Dev get more shots. We're going to see Keldon continue to show why he's a piece that maybe we should keep coming off the bench because he is so lethal. And again, that's why these stretch of games are important. And like I said, we have winnable games on the horizon. I'm not going to lie. The very, very bottom end of the schedule is pretty tough. But again, why I think this next stretch of games is extremely important because these are all winnable games, especially those back-to-back Dallas games. Get those. Get this win against the Kings. We will definitely come back and do a pregame show to talk about the Kings. But I just had to take the time to really just talk about what's going on right now. And also, like I said, gauge how y'all feeling. Are y'all feeling like y'all want to see a little bit of success in this stretch because, again, we kind of talked about this before. I don't know if losing out even gets you where you want to be at when it comes to like the tank method. Like, when you're tanking for a top 2, top 3 pick. I do not know if at least the Spurs pick will be able to be that because of how low the bottom feeders of the NBA are. So with that in mind, I'd rather see real trade assets, real valuable assets get to play, show why they can compete, and maybe some other teams is watching, maybe some other teams are playing them, and maybe it works out in the Spurs' favor. But again, I want to see Spurs play good basketball. I want to see the Spurs win. And I know some of y'all feel me too. I know y'all want to see the Spurs win. I know y'all want to see Mitch Johnson do well in Pop's absence. Like, that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm feeling positive about it, and I honestly cannot wait to see these next stretch of games because I really think the Spurs can build a lot of chemistry, build a little more of that identity as they wait for Wemby to get healthy, which we know will happen. So, Spurs Digest family, let us know how y'all feeling. We got a few days until it's time. We got some other videos coming, though, because there's some speculation. There's some trade speculation going on. I think my boy Josh is going to hit on that, so make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that doorbell to be notified every time Spurs Digest drops a show. I'm Brian Coble. Until next time, I'm going to see y'all for the pregame when we take on the Sacramento Kings.